Welcome back to the Junkman's Adventures and the Shifting Gears podcast. I'm here with my co-host, SkullKrusher. Got him on the phone here. And as you can see, we're live with some video. And, Skull, what's been happening this week? You were telling me something about kind of a repair you were doing that was kind of aggravating you here.
Well, yeah, I had a light bulb go out on my Impala.
Okay, I have an Impala too, so I might know a little bit about this.
Yeah, well, some of this is design related, and some of this is just because of it's the middle of winter. But so on these Impalas, you have to the first thing you do when you pop the hood and look in that general vicinity is you have to take a bolt out.
Yeah.
Well, my tools were all snowed in.
Didn't you have them in the garage, or were they in the back of the pickup?
Yeah, they were in the garage, but I never dug the garage out. So, luckily,
hold up. Tell folks why that would be, because you guys kind of got a lot of snow back in your area.
Yeah, we probably got a foot or two in the last month within like a 2-week span.
That's kind of rare for back there. But anyway, back to your story.
Well, I mean, we get that kind of snow, but like not all at once.
I see.
And then that's not including like all the freezing temps like everybody else. Like everybody was talking about in Texas at freezing. Well, it was a lot colder up here.
Yeah. Well, you're a lot farther north too.
but so thankfully I've gone to Harbor Freight, not to give them a plug, but because they're not sponsoring us or anything.
Yeah, no, of course. Okay, I'm going to derail this conversation a little bit just because you brought up Harbor Freight, and everybody's got opinions about Harbor Freight, and I tell you what, I've talked to them on my live streams before about it, but there's nothing wrong with it for when you need a tool and you didn't have a tool and it's something you're not going to use that often. And like you do some mechanicing, but you don't do it by trade. So, you don't need Harbor Freight's going to do the job where it's a once in a while kind of use, And
I'm not dissing on them. It was a good thing I went there because I had some tools in my car in case something happens on the side of the road and I need to. It can be something that I could easily fix.
Right.
So I ended up grabbing that, thinking about that, grabbing that. Well, you take the bolt out, and then they got this little strap thing. I don't know how else to describe it. So you have to pull that apart, and then the whole headlight comes out.
Right, the whole assembly, right.
Yes. Well, then the next part is to get the seal, I guess that's what you'd want to call it, the cover off the back of the headlight, and that was a pain in the butt too.
It's been a long time for me. They're just a quarter turn socket, bulb socket kind of thing, right?
No, you have to turn it by hand. There's no socket to it, and they don't give you they give you a little bit of area to grip, but I mean it's all plastic, so if it's brittle enough, it probably could break.
Huh. I'll be darned.
And like mine's new enough. Mine's an 09. So the seals are all really nice and tight and good still. So yeah, that was another pain in the butt. That took too long to get apart.
Right.
And then once you get in there, then it's just replacing the bulb, but then you got to put it all back together.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And then of course it's that cold weather that you're talking about. It was kind of single digits there for a while, right?
So. Yeah, well, actually not even. It was below zero. It was like
Fahrenheit.
-20.
We should be talking
22.
Fahrenheit for our across the pond friends, or our metric friends, I guess, to the north and south of us, I guess.
Yeah. It doesn't usually get that cold here.
No. I mean, I'm used kind of used to it at times. But
Well, and on top of all this, I'm not feeling well anyways. I have some kind of a minor sinus issue, so um so I'm not like feeling like I want to deal with this. And
yeah, well, I mean, okay, a lot of people watch my videos and think like it's fun, and it's fun making the video and fixing that for fun. But when it's your primary mode of transportation or stuff, I really hate working on that kind of stuff.
well, I mean, I mean, and I do have a pickup, but who knows if that starts in -22 at the moment. I've gone through so many batteries because of cold winters here.
Yeah, well, it's just the nature of the beast there.
But anyways, I digress. It
Uh,
was I don't know. I don't, like, I'm in the engineering side. I don't blame the engineers necessarily because they
See, and
had
that's
some
the first
boss
thing the
telling them.
mechanic. That's the first thing the mechanic would
I know
take.
I know exactly what I know that's exactly what everybody would say, but you know what? They got a boss, and the boss was like, "Well, we want this with all this stuff, and I
At a
don't care how
price
you do it.
point too,
Just
right?
yeah, I don't care how you do it. You're just gonna get it in there." And so the engineer's like, "Well, okay, I'll throw it in there."
Yeah.
Well, and the other part of that is got to be they're like, well, if we make this so hard, the common everyday man's not gonna want to do this, so they're gonna take it to the shop,
Yeah, but
and then
see,
we make our
make your
dealers a
money.
little bit more
Yeah.
money.
Well, right, but you kind of get into a touchy subject here, which we're not going to get to on this podcast. But the whole right to repair kind of thing. That's all over the industry, or kind of coming all over
Oh
the
yeah.
industry. I mean, you know what? I think we're a ways away from that, but I just see how some electronics manufacturers, Apple, is about it. But even in the more industrial side, uh, John Deere gets thrown around a little bit. Theirs is
Yeah.
not as egregious. I think. I think they're just like they're like Harley Davidson. They gotta toot their horn and stuff and kind of be like a big. I think they're just started testing the waters to see what kind of. And they got some backlash for that. But like I said, we're not going to get into that in this kind of
Yeah, we
podcast thing.
probably better not. Probably better not bring up John Deere either.
Yeah,
So.
exactly. Yeah. But you know what? Talking about this issue and some of that segues into sort of what kind of was on my mind this week was used cars and used car pricing and such. I don't know, when's the last time you bought a used car? I mean, the thing you're driving, basically. How long have you had that now?
Oh, it'll be probably. I probably had it for a year and a half now.
Okay, so it's still pretty fresh, and I just recently, I guess you'd say, upgraded, and was looking, bought a used car. Both of us, or I can't afford new. Well, shouldn't say that. I don't want to afford new. 'Cause I don't want to. I don't want to be paycheck to paycheck. It'd be almost paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of thing.
I did that once. I bought a brand new car once, and
tell us.
Yeah, that was
actually. You can dive in and get as detailed or high levels as you want, but just let's not get into the details actually. But because I've never bought a new car. Surprising as that it may be to some people. I've never gone to a dealer. I'd probably get took, actually, to be honest, because I don't know what to expect. You have what's just we'll get to the used cars, but this kind of brings up describe sort of the process. What was your motivating factor, good or bad? I mean, hindsight's always 2020, and you're younger then, you're older now. Same here. I mean, just go into as much detail as you want. I mean, you don't have to get into the actual numbers and all that stuff.
I actually don't even remember why why I got a new car. I just just showed up at a lot and bought a new car because it could, I guess.
Well, and I think, hey, actually saying because you could is, I think, how some people get into it. And there's nothing wrong with buying a new car. That's not what this is about. Not to bash new car people or people who lease cars, you know. Your financial situation dictates that, and this isn't a financial show. If you want that, go listen.
Well,
Go listen to Dave Ramsey or something, you know. But
that was definitely something because I was like, that was eye opening because you don't think about how much financing and stuff costs, and then yeah, so that part was very eye opening. This is how this was like directly out of college. Like I didn't know things yet.
yeah, well, and I kind of wouldn't have either.
And I like I said, I don't even remember why I decided that I was going to go look at a new car, but
well, maybe it was you need. Well, I remember you had that white Cavalier.
yeah,
that was getting up there
that
into miles and all that.
no, it really wasn't. I bought that. So when we bought that car, because that was if remember the last podcast, I said the Buick had been crashed.
Well, right.
That's how it ended. Well, that was the car that we bought for me to go to college, and it only had 66,000 miles.
Oh, okay. But you drove it all through college and everything, and I guess
yeah,
you're out of college.
Which I didn't go to a 4-year school. It was just a 2-year tech school. So
well, nothing wrong with that.
So when you say go on to college, it wasn't like all 4 years.
Yeah, but that's still continuing your education. You know, I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose you maybe fell into the same. I don't want to call it a trap, but same mentality. But well, I got a job. I'm making this much, and they say, hey, this is your payment, and you're like, I can afford that. I mean, that's the thing. That's why I could afford I could afford a new car, but do I want to do other things? That's how that's.
Well, and see, that was part of what was misleading because I think by the time I bought the car, I was working overtime, and it was at a place that the overtime never really quit.
Right.
So it's like I never really saw what my normal paycheck was.
And, without overtime is what you're saying.
Without okay. Overtime. And that is kind of like I said, after a while it became eye-opening because I was like, oh, well, I can't afford this now. Or, well, I mean, I could afford it. Actually, I could afford it. It's just that it made things really, really tight because I used everything that I had extra in my budget.
And that's what I'm getting at is it's just being tight. And, oh, shoot, I just kind of lost my train of thought. But it's like, I kind of like the housing market. I mean, is, sometimes they'll say, yeah, we can loan you up to this, like almost. And it doesn't make any sense. And I think
if you want to get into that, so by the time I bought my house, like I went to several places, shopped around for loans.
Yeah.
And I knew what I needed for the house that I bought.
Right.
And I already kind of had like I had some ideas of what offers I wanted to accept from the loan companies. But I went to one bank and they figured everything up. And they wanted to, then my payment would have been so big that I would have had no extra. And I literally laughed in the gal's face.
But see, the heck of it is, and that's like with cars, is they'll do it. They'll write that loan knowing that it's bad. And I know why they do it, or I have an idea why they do it, because they're going to get the interest out of you for a period of time. And then they're going to get the car back. And they've made it up on the interest, and they'll get to sell it as a used car. So, hey, we've come full circle. So, talking about used cars, and I hate to be the grumpy old man about this, the price of cars is too damn high, but it kind of is for some things. And I'm not talking these 5-year-old off or 3-year-old off lease kind of things, where somebody already is taking the depreciation hit. I'm talking about 10 year plus old cars that are out. what I think kind of outrageous in price for what they are. I mean, and I'm not talking specialty vehicles or something that has some sort of uniqueness to it. I'm not talking about a, you know, uh, I don't know why this is coming to my head, but a Mazda Miata or something, or whatever. That's something different. That's going to hold its value. I'm talking like our Impalas or our let's see, those are seventh gen, whatever, seventh gen Impalas. I think
I wouldn't know
anyway,
what gen they are.
The first year for the front wheel drive ones, not the full size. The like the Capri Space rear wheel drive, V8s, the prior.
Yeah.
So the 2000 and newer, or 2000,
Yeah.
whatever. Now, I mean, those cars are cheap. You can get them cheap, but also some of them are. And I'm saying cars like that, not that particular car, but I'm thinking, Toyota Corollas, Honda Accords. I forget what Ford's got in that era. Like the Taurus or the Fusion or something along those lines. They're just a car, and I don't get it that they can. Those kind of things, they should be in the few $1,000s, and then these crossovers and SUV type things are sometimes 10-year-old cars, and they're still wanting over 10 grand, and they're over 100, well over 100,000 miles. We're talking 120, and I understand cars today. I mean, something, in my opinion, it's my opinion here, warning, I'd say cars made in the last 20 to 25 years, it's hard to find a really bad car. There was a few select things from each manufacturer. It's like you don't want that. But for the overall, cars are almost better than they ever have been. If you go back and listen to our last podcast, we talked about some of our favorite cars, and we mostly talked about some of the junkers. We didn't even get into the real fun things. But
yeah,
some of those are terrible. Were terrible cars when they were brand new. Where it's hard for me to legit say that even something like whatever the cheapest car made today, probably a Kia something or other. That's
if you're buying something new,
even new, are not horrible. Now, they may not have certain features. They might not, be the quietest or whatever, but they're not going to be necessarily rattle traps. They're not going to necessarily leave you on the side of the road in the first 50,000 miles, usually. I mean, I know people will be down in the comments saying, I had a blah, 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 and it, 30,000 miles and blew the engine or something. And it's like, well, there's probably some extenuating circumstances there. And I'm guessing, roundabout what I'm saying is, I think cars today are more more valuable as a material item than they almost ever have been, and I think that's part of it. And I think some of it has to do with some of this new technology, safety regulations coming down the pike, or that have come down the pike, that have to be engineered into these brand new cars, that people, like I said, you can afford them, but then you get, if you can't afford them, then they get repoed, or you have to take a hit, go upside down on them. Like you weren't upside down or nothing, but like when you bought your new car, you got yourself into where it was kind of tight, and other people get where they're upside down on the thing, and then have to get out of it. But then they go to a used car, and it's like, just, I don't know, and I don't know when this happened. It just seems like it was so slow, but I think it's just the fact that you almost, outside of certain cities and city dwellers and lifestyles, you just can't go without some sort of mode of your own personal transportation. I don't know. I understand that's sort of changing with this ride sharing and, and of course, EVs and all that. And honestly, I think maybe this apprehension around EVs might be driving some of it up. And I'm not against electric cars necessarily. I just wish they would have to compete fairly, But that's a whole nother discussion. But let's pretend they do. I think a lot of people still want the choice of the type of car, a gas car, for example, versus an EV. And I think that drives the used car market up because eventually I think people are, I don't want to say they're hoarding, but it's more like it's a fear of that gas car might go away, which it may get away. I don't think it will happen in my lifetime, but I could be wrong there. So I don't know. That's my opinion. That's what I was thinking about sort of this week, is why old and high mileage used cars are so expensive. I mean, you find the deals, but they're just not out there in most lots or even even on the like the Craigslist and the private sale kind of apps. People asking what they're asking, and I'm assuming they're kind of getting it.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it also too is inflation.
Well, that's
And I
that's a
know that's kind
given,
of
but
weird saying to someone that's still on private party, but it's still, I think it's still valid.
no, I think you're right. It is valid, uh, but again, it's like there
Because
should.
I guess my opinion is like, like you used to buy $500 cars, and now if you want a $500 car, you got to pay like 1,000 to 1,200 or 15.
Right, 15. Yeah, actually, you're probably hitting the nail right on the head. $1,500 is the new $500 car. I mean, granted, there are literal $500 cars, but you're almost not driving those
Yeah,
home
but
anymore.
those $500 cars aren't the kind of $500 cars that we would be talking about, or we intended to talk about, I guess.
Right. Well, exactly. I mean, I kind of wanted to get into that. What is a $500 car? Um, but like my recent, I guess, upgrade, you'd say, I bowed down to the whole crossover thing, the kind of the car based SUV for a family vehicle, family man kind of thing, need the space, and I like it. I really like it. But I was always a still kind of am that mentality. I guess you got to know how I grew up, and you were similar this way too. But it's like when we were growing up, our folks, or I grew up in cars that were from the either late '60s or '70s, and our family car was a 1976 Chrysler Newport, big lead sled, uh, right in that changeover year of catalytic converters and stuff, and this one didn't have it and still required, leaded fuel. So, um, and I can still remember as a kid, gas stations that still had leaded fuel for a little while, and then we had to run a lead substitute, or we chose to run a lead substitute in there. I mean, there's a debate on if you really needed to do that, but I remember the case of in the trunk of a product called Instead O lead, as an additive, a gasoline additive. But anyway, beside the point. But that was in the era, that was in the '80s, and we're driving a '70s car, and it was only 10 years old at the time, but it looked ancient compared to the new cars on the road because you had the more boxy and boxy cars that were, of course, smaller, shorter. Front lot of them were front wheel drive. The quote big car was gone, or leaving us, I should say, at that time. Uh, so my idea of what a car like from a practical standpoint is kind of from that prism. So a sedan was always, that is the car you drive on a trip. You can have pickups, you can the SUVs, truck-based SUVs. So I'm talking more like the original Ford Explorers and Blazers. Not the K5 and the Bronco thing, but the smaller ones, the Bronco 2, like the Bronco 2 or something like that. See, to me, that's the SUV. That was an SUV to me, or to us when we were growing up. Not these car-based things that do have all-wheel drive or a four-wheel drive, but nothing necessarily selectable. But I like it. I like the technology. Or in the drivetrain and some of the functionalities, and the fact that some of them can be very big, roomy inside and have a very small footprint. That's kind of nice, and they don't ride too bad, at least what I got. But my gosh, I was looking for this model of vehicle, and they were well over, they were 10 grand for 10-year-old cars, or even less than 10-year-old cars, but having 130 some thousand miles on it. And I just couldn't justify paying that much for something with that many miles, because I know 100,000 is just broken in these days, but it's still going back to those 70s cars. That's worn out to me. And like, we come off of farms, so that's like having 5,000 hours on a tractor. That's like getting worn out. Or kind of thing, or that's on the verge of worn out. Whether it really is or not, that's just like the measuring stick that's in my head, and I have to kind of break that when I think of modern cars. But I'm getting a little off topic, but I kind of wanted to get into sort of was some of my frustration in finding. But I found a really good deal on this thing in that really low price range. I had to compromise a bit on the mileage, but me, I fix them up, and as long as the body and the interior is in great shape, the rest of it can go. Because most cars today, they're 200,000 mile cars these days, so
yeah,
that's kind of like going to the $500 car that's now the $1,500 car. If it's got 150,000 miles on it, it's still got, you could still probably be putting another 100 on that on most types of models, not everything, but
yeah,
but
at least 75 probably.
Well, at least 75.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost guaranteed. I mean, I guess it depends on, obviously it depends on who you buy it from and what kind of shape it's in, if it looks like it's been beat the heck or not. But
well, yeah, and see, the price should reflect that, of course, but I don't know, around my area, God, these things that they may look okay, but you can tell the interiors are kind of ratted just a little bit, and you can tell it's not had even some of the basic maintenance is done and replacement parts, and they're still asking 7-8 grand for the thing, whereas a more better example of it would be over 10 grand. I just it's just hard to find, especially if you want to get into the commuter stuff. I guess really that's where I kind of wanted the conversation to go, is like, it's hard to even find just your beater cars, unless without them having some type of damage. I mean, you can attest to that, cosmetic or just wheel bearings and things like that are about shot.
Yeah.
Which for some people, take it to a shop, that's a couple hundred. That's a couple $100. For me, it's like, well, the bearing's $30, and I'll waste a weekend on it or something. But
that's also it could be even more, because like I found out on like my little Ford Escort, that was like $350 in just parts, and that wasn't even installing it. And the thing looked like it was from a spaceship or something.
Well, again, every car is different, but I'm generalizing here, but not everybody can do that. I mean, that's the thing. I believe you replaced that yourself, didn't you? Or did you eventually
No, I did not. I took the wheel off, I looked at that thing, and I'm like, no.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I took it to the shop that's a block away and had them do it.
Yeah, and that's probably better worth your time too. I mean, a lot of times I do repairs that I would have been worth it would have been, well, I was wasting my time by doing it myself, but sometimes I get caught up in the whole. It
definitely was worth the frustration.
Exactly, the frustration.
Definitely worth the frustration. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the quote $500 cars these days, is you're just that's just those kind of things are just kind of going to be a given, so that what used to be the $1,500 $500 car is now the $1,500 car. But you just almost got a plan. You're going to put another 500 in it. I don't want to say immediately, but soon, and then you're buying yourself some more time. To me, it's not so much the drivetrains you got to worry about on cars today. That's why I say cars are almost better than they ever have been. But it's some of the other little stuff. Actually, my Grand Am. That car has taught me why, when it was new, and it's a '99, why in the '90s, why people had such a, and in the early 2000s, disdain for GM products. And it's not because that car is like bad necessarily. I mean, it's just a car. There's not a lot of comfort, but it functions well. It's not about the driveline, the engine, transmission, or anything, but it's all the little stuff in the interior. Just the fit and finish, radio buttons, like, for example, the volume knob. And I think, did I tell this story on the last podcast? Maybe I didn't. But, I bought that car used with 40,000 miles on it. Okay. But it sat a long time. Okay. But I can't tell you, and it was an old, like an old couple. And the back windows, they had adult kids, so obviously those windows probably never went down, up or down. If they did, it was like a cup. You could count on your hand probably how many times those rear windows went up and down since they owned it. I used it twice, and a little plastic retainer piece that makes it go up and down on there's cables in there, broke. I mean, for age. But again, the front windows probably did go up and down hundreds, thousands of times before I got it, and those have never broken. And then like a radio button, the volume knob is one of those ones that just infinitely spins, and I don't care if it's sometimes when it's cold. And again, that's a thing where that knob probably hasn't made more than a few hundred revolutions in its life. And if it's below 40 degrees out, you turn it this way, should be volume up and that volume down, generally speaking. Clockwise volume up, counterclockwise volume down. Sometimes it just decides to switch. And I mean, so I think it's stuff like that just gave GM a bad time and a bad reputation, and I think that happens to all the brands. I don't care what it is, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, the Japanese ones, on certain cars. But now, to me, I understand what's going on, but if you just want to turn the key and drive, that would be highly annoying. And you're like, hey, I paid $20-something thousand for this car, and the radio knob acts wonky sometimes, or like I said, the windows all of a sudden don't work, and it doesn't have any and doesn't have much use on it or mileage on it, So I think that's a little side story, but that, it was a used car, I bought, and I'm still driving it, and it's a great commuter car. Hard to get in and out, kind of, but would I buy another one? No, but the price was right, kind of thing. But yeah, that Escort of yours, that was wasn't that a true $500 car? Wasn't that like almost a $300 car, wasn't it?
No, the Escort was, it was like 1,200 or something.
Okay, well, there you go. But you knew what you're buying, But
I bought it from Jeff, and Jeff had gone through it completely,
right?
And he actually had no. Funny story. He had no intention of selling it to me. That was supposed to be his wife's car.
Okay. But probably going to use it as a beater or commuter to wear out.
Well, she was going to use it as a commuter, and it was a great little car. The only reason I ended up with it was he was trying to get I think it was a Kia.
Okay.
That he replaced the was a timing chain or something in it, and he was trying to get it going, and then the engine grenaded, and he didn't have he wasn't going to replace the engine in it, and he but I was already because I had paid him a little bit of money on it so he could get the seals and stuff he needed,
Yeah.
and so we were already kind of halfway done with the deal.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm kind of talking about is most of these cars, are for commuter cars um, like Grand Am. I don't intend to, take long trips and that kind of thing. I trust it that far. It's just it would not be comfortable at all. But I
That's
mean,
kind that's kind of funny because we were talking about just before I finally blew the engine in that little Escort, we had actually talked about driving it all the way out to Colorado and driving it up a mountain.
yeah, yeah, and I still kind of think about that and how we do it so we could do it, but also make it recoverable. If something happened. But
Yeah.
I gotta say, where we were gonna go and what we were gonna do, I honestly think it might have made it to the top because now you got me taking telling the story here. So man, we're really shifting gears here. I think we ground them into reverse a while back there. We might be leaving some U joints back there. But I feel like if you made it this far into the podcast, you might want to hear this story. And of course, it was Top Gear BBC, and I think even Top Gear America was on at the time, the original series. But BBC kind of gave us the idea, is taking that car and going up a mountain pass called. Well, it's the top of Webster Pass, but coming from the side from, if you look up on the map, side from Montezuma. But anyway, it's a off-road trail, Jeep trail, I guess you kind of call it. But it's goes high up. There's some areas that are kind of steep, but not. They're not like you don't have to be an expert or have an ex. You should have high clearance, I guess. But the way the road is, I mean, it's one lane. It's kind of steep, and there's a bunch of switchbacks, especially as you're getting right to the top. And but there isn't like huge rocks. You don't need like 44s and like 24 inches of articulation and stuff. You don't need a buggy to go up this thing. Stock 4-wheel drive pickups and even a lot of higher clearance, SUVs. If you drive right, can go there. I mean, you still do have to steer around some rocks, but I think what we were thinking about doing is putting some half decent tires on it, front, especially something with a little bit of grab because you had those bald. By the time it was about done, your tires were about bald, if I recall. On
Well, I was constantly replacing tires on that car because I mean it was used for commuting every day, so I went, I go through tires like crazy.
Yeah, but anyway, we were going to put something, like semi decent. I mean, they'd be used tires, of course, but like something with a little bit of grab to it because it would need that more than just a street tread to go up this
Yeah.
thing. But yeah, I think what we were going to do and how I had it thought is we'd start because it's fairly flat because you're driving through a valley and then there is a water crossing. And if I think about it, I'll put a picture here of that water crossing. That would have actually brought water into the doors, not over the windows, but into the cabin because it depended on what time of year, I guess, with the snow melt and stuff. But I was thinking it's like, okay, well, I can follow along. We filmed this whole thing, driving it, and follow along with the pickup with some kind of recovery strap and things like that. But I was like, kind of like, well, what if we really like? Because I was the part that I couldn't figure out is going down through valley wouldn't be so bad because if it crapped out, bashed a rock on the oil pan and drained all the oil out and whatnot. I knew we could probably figure out how to get it down there. It's just when it started going up the switchbacks, and I don't recall how many there are, but there's, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, I think, to get to, and then you're at the top, and then of course you got to come down, and of course the car would turn, like my pickup has to make a 2 or a 3 point turn. That's how tight these switchbacks are. Full size pickup, not not a extended cab long box, but a regular cab long box, and I have to make um, I have to make switchbacks. So the car would make it around it. It's just, well, what if it crapped out there? Because there's no way to drive around it because it's a sheer drop off on the side, and then kind of a, not a sheer cliff, but you can't just drive up and over the side. So I was like, well, because I would then have to, like, if I was going to tow it, I have to tow it backwards, and you have to steer, and that was the part I couldn't figure out, is how we'd get it down if it didn't make it up, or if got to the top, because it was, close to about 12,000 feet. Maybe it wouldn't run up there even, because even a modern, like I said, like I drove my pickup up there several times, and it's 5.9 V8 EFI, all that jazz, and it's huffing and puffing up there. But yeah, that would have been kind of a fun thing to try. We'd have to haul it out there. Well, I guess you were thinking about actually driving it, weren't you? Wasn't that going to be part of the deal? Yeah. So yeah, we'd have to dealt with I-70 through the mountains and everything.
Well, and that was definitely one of the things I was like, oh, driving down the interstate and that thing.
Yeah, especially with worn out bushings and everything. That's probably. I mean, for commuting, you can deal with a little bit of shimmy here at 65.
And I mean, and I should say I never really took that thing on the interstate. I kept it always on the highway.
Yeah, so you're 65.
Because that thing was kind of like a Geo Metro, sort of. It was just a very small car and very small engine that had no power, and any semi that would come along would just blow you away. So,
well,
I kept her off the interstate all the time.
Well, that's the thing. You would have had to.
So trying to figure out how to get to where you live would have been kind of interesting, considering the only way I've ever gone before, I had to take interstate a little bit.
Well, that's the thing, is you definitely have to. Well, and to get to where we're going, you'd have to do interstate through the mountains, and you've been on that, of course, the ups and downs and the steep grades that have runaway. Yeah. There's runaway truck ramps for a reason on that interstate through the Rockies. Those for people that live in the flatlands or overseas. It's a. I don't want to say it's a dangerous interstate by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, it's a challenging drive for, over the road trucks that have to negotiate not only traffic, but steep, the maximum allowable steep grades we have over in this country for what we call interstate travel, which is, it's pretty steep. Even in cars, people get their brakes heat up and too hot and glaze rotors and then have trouble stopping if they don't know to either, if they can, downshift in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, so that car would have been, just from the braking standpoint, I mean, obviously you can go slow, drop a gear and drop it out of overdrive or something like that, but still that would have been just hairy enough, doing a couple of those steep grades just to get there. But that's the thing. I would have to tow a trailer, and I would have to got this car trailer part of the way in there, and that would have been just a challenge in itself. It could make it, but there's a very only small place to like turn around and maybe park it off the way and unhook it to then drive follow the pickup along with the car. But yeah, I have a feeling if we were a lot younger, like thinking about some of our early days, I think we would have probably just done it without even thinking about it too hard.
Well,
I think another person would have joined us too.
I think a couple of people. We'd have had all 4 seats filled.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, too old now, I guess. Yeah.
I don't think
Maybe
it was
we are.
that. It's just
We're smarter.
So
we're more risk averse.
No, I was still thinking about doing it. The only reason I hadn't, I should probably say, so I knew I knew something was wrong with the car. I knew that it probably wasn't going to last me terribly much longer. I just didn't know how much longer, because I had already purchased. I had called or texted our mechanic friend, and I had, at the time, I told him, I said, I'm gonna need to get another car from you.
Yeah.
And I had already purchased it, and he just had a few things to finish up on it, a few minor things to finish up on it, and so was waiting to get it, and I still had this car, and that was the only reason we were thinking about it, is because, like, oh, I got another car, and I got this extra car, and I don't know what else to do with it. Might as well have some fun with it. But that car, I think I'm assuming, without taking it apart, something in the lifters broke, and then started crashing the engine.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know much about the engine in that, but yeah, I could be right. Something along those lines.
Yeah. Well, and it had 200 and I remember this. It had 234,999 miles to go, or on it. And I was just like, it couldn't go one more mile to flip over.
Yeah. It's like, nope. It's like, nope, I'm done. The little thing pops out of the turkey and says, boom. You're not going to get that 300, That is almost a post for if you would have taken a picture of that and just had a little verbiage, blew the engine, and just a picture of that. That could go on this on Reddit, in this subreddit called "Mildly Infuriating."
Actually, I did post it on my Facebook.
Oh, well, shoot. Okay. All right, folks. I'm in front of my computer, obviously recording this thing. I got to go and find this thing and download it, because I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna put this in the.
And I did say something like, I can't remember what I said, but it had to say something like it couldn't go that last mile or something.
Okay, I gotta. Let's see here. I might be able to find it pretty quickly. Okay.
I don't remember. That's got to be.
Let's see.
That's got to be almost 4 years ago now.
Well, I know. Well, actually, let me see if I can find this. Well, actually, I'll tell you while I find this, and I'm going to download this picture too. You pretty recently here, just bought a car. Because I'm gonna put this in here so folks can see it if you're watching the podcast here.
I did recently buy a car, but it's not a $500 commuter car.
Well, no, it's not. But explain what it is and why, because it kind of go through the history, because I know some of it, but not all of it. I'm going to try to find your picture here.
Well, I don't know what I could say for history. Like,
well, why did you want this car? Start from the beginning. What draws you to this particular model? They're going to see it once I put it up here, but
well, I was looking in a car magazine, and it was Mustang versus Camaro. I remember that part, and I remember seeing the Camaro and I'm like 5 years old, and I remember seeing this Camaro, and I'm like, I love the looks of that car.
Okay.
And I'm like, I decided right then, I'm like, someday I'm gonna own a car like that. And this is an 80s Gen 3 car.
Yeah, yeah. Gen 3 Camaro, yeah.
Yeah, Gen 3 Camaro.
Or no, would that be a Gen
And
4? You know what? I'll check that.
no, it's a Gen 3.
Okay. I'm not up on my.
Gen
Anyway, go
4s
ahead.
are the Arrowhead. Gen 4s are the Arrowhead design.
Right, which sidetrack it just a touch. I remember when those were brand new, and I remember not really liking them, in my opinion. But
No,
you're
and I
right. You're
don't.
right. It's a third
I mean,
gen. You're right.
I mean, I wouldn't. I don't dislike them. Let's put it that way.
Well, I didn't hate them, but I just thought that doesn't. That's not a.
I like it.
That's
I
not
like it,
Camaro.
and they would be my. They'd be my second pick.
Well, obviously, from just a pure drivability standpoint, yeah. I mean,
because I don't even necessarily like I don't like the newer ones, and I don't. I wasn't really into I'm not into the 70s style or the.
Yeah, but those are the ones that, well, used to be cheap. Now they're getting up there. But those are the ones. Like I said, I'll sidetrack you again. I did find your odometer picture, and of course, it doesn't go out to the 100, but it's 20,001 is where it broke at.
Oh, okay.
So it would have been. So that would have been 200,000 because it's already rolled over a couple times. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anyway. It was 234. Well.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I found it. I found it. I'm gonna. If I remember, I'll post it up in here in post production on this. But actually, I'll sidetrack you one thing about the second gens, which you don't like. And I remember nobody liked those for the longest time, but they're kind of coming up. But I think it was who was it? Was it Jesse? Remember he had a was it a 73? I think. Anyway, that Berlinetta. I think it was white. I think it had.
I didn't know they made. I didn't know the second gens had names like that.
Well, that was a trim package, and I think I remember we because it was a pile, but it was a Camaro, so had to be, that was his, but I remember we used to joke. It says Berlinetto is French for shit, or something. I think it was like because that was a trim pack. I think that was a trim package. But anyway, go back on. I'm sidetracking and going down memory lane again. I do that often here. So
no. Well, I ended up buying one actually in December.
Okay, I'm going to post it right here. Okay, note for my future self. Anyway, yeah. So you picked that up, obviously, and gonna be a project car for you. Is that sort of the idea?
It's gonna end up being so the guy tried to sell it to me with saying that the engine and the tranny were good in it, and I did what I could do. I mean, he didn't have an air filter on it, and he would start it up, but he wouldn't let it run for a few seconds, and anyways, we got it to to my friend's shop, and we found out that the engine wasn't even a Camaro engine; it was a pickup engine, which is probably pretty typical of most of those now, unless it was really taken care of.
Right. Yeah.
And the tranny is shot and everything. So, but what I paid for it, the body is good. So we're gonna tear it apart.
And your interior's in pretty good shape, actually.
Actually, the interior, I don't even have to touch the interior. From what I can tell, like I don't think any of it tripped. It's still all from the still all authentic.
Okay. Well,
Um,
and people are probably looking at the picture right now because I got it posted here, and it may not look like that from the outside, but it really is. It's a good shell, I guess. Is what.
yeah.
What's your what's your
We're gonna
plans for it?
complete we're gonna completely strip her down, including not just the engine and the tranny, but we're also talking about like the suspension and the wiring, and we're gonna completely make it brand new again. Um,
What
what and what I've always wanted to do with one of these is not necessarily take it to car shows and that kind of thing. I've always wanted what we call Sunday drivers, which
right?
is basically just a term meaning that I'm not driving this 7 days a week. I'm just driving it on, well, at the time it meant Sundays. You know, you
Right.
just take
Yeah.
it Sunday for a cruise.
So yeah, just
And
something
that,
you can go out and drive. Yeah.
but it sounds like by the time we get this all done, it's going to be a brand new car, and I could literally drive it as a commuter car if I wanted to.
Well, I mean that's nothing wrong with that either. But
uh,
yeah, but I guess would you want to? Is that after you
Ian,
wear it out,
I,
kind of doing that? I mean, maybe on Fridays or
I
something, or nice days, fair weather driver, maybe.
yeah, well, I definitely wouldn't be driving it in the winter. Actually, probably what'll happen is it'll probably be more of a just a summertime drive around car. It is T top, so I can, I'll be able to take the T tops out and um,
Right. Yeah, it's got T tops. Yeah.
yep, just cruise with it, and then during the winter I'll have like right now it's the Impala. Who knows by the time I get this done if I'll still have the Impala, but if not, I'll have something else, and I can drive that during the winter, and
Yeah.
it'll be it'll all be good.
You
So
know, it's funny. Speaking of the kind of this car, you were kind of at one time. You're kind of going to do the same thing. I remember had ideas of doing this sort of with a square body Chevy pickup at the time, sort of. I remember you were kind of looking at that. I mean, this has been years ago. Not in a
oh
recent time.
yeah, maybe.
I always thought,
I do like those square bodies, but now I've got kind of like the next, well, I don't know what gen you would call those, but I've got like the 2000 version of it, so it's pretty much a square body.
well, these days, yeah.
Just a newer version of the square body.
Yeah, it's funny because square body aficionados or whatever, they scoff when you call like what you have a square body because to them that's not. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of getting we're shifting gears again here, but some of that gatekeeping kind of gets a little aggravating in some of those segments. And I can't say that I don't do it a little bit in certain aspects, but you know, uh, when it comes to those pickups in those eras, it's like it's kind of funny. It's like it's just Ford. It's almost just Ford and Chevy. It's almost like Dodge, and I know why. It's like Dodge doesn't get in on that because mostly during that era, it's like Dodge was so far in like third place that they didn't even matter because it's like they didn't build pickups for regular people. They were built more as for trades work. They had no comfort features, full time 4-wheel drive and stuff like that. So they were just terrible mileage and all that. I get it, but it's funny how the Dodges of that area are just as square, and I think just as kind of have that classic style as well. It's just I think that Chevys and especially Fords and Chevys just outsold them so much. It's like that's what people remember, because honestly
Well,
I
funny,
can't hard.
funny you bring that up because my neighbor's got one. One of my neighbors has got an
What year do you know? Or
roughly, I'm guessing it's an '80s
okay, yeah.
Dodge with the extended cab on it, which I've actually this is the first extended cab I've ever seen in that body style.
Well, I'm seeing a bunch of them. It's hard, growing up though. I just don't remember anybody in our area who really ever had one.
Oh, our neighbor did. Um,
And I think well that's
our
odd
neighbor
because
up the
and
road
I
did.
know why it is because hell there's no dealers around. I mean there was, but you had to drive twice as far to a Dodge dealer than a Ford or a Chevy.
Yeah, I
Um,
wouldn't even because back then, well, even back then, even the Chevy was a drive
right.
for us. I mean, even for you, it would have been too. And that was the
Yeah.
closest Ford dealer was even further, and the Dodge dealer, I wouldn't even care to guess where that was at.
Well, I mean you had blacks, but
Oh, you know what? I forgot about
I
them
always
because
do
yeah,
for
they
I do for but I always figured most people go would have went back in our day would have went to like Grand Island or something like that.
well, yeah, I was just like because I don't even think Carney had one. Not until not
Not
until till Spady decided to
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Probably that is probably right because I don't. Yeah, or if there was, see, and that's the thing. I think like Black, they didn't sell many pickups. It was all more cars. Like the K cars and things of that era. Um, but yeah, or not the K. Well, yeah, K car. And the claims and all that stuff that came out. That yeah, that kind of platforms. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of funny. I mean, I'm sure they were. It's just you just didn't ever notice them. I just remember, when it wasn't until the quote new Dodge in '92 or '94. Can't remember.
I thought they were 93s,
Maybe
so it would
'93.
have been 90. I think I don't know why I remember that, but I think in 93 is when they came out, so it probably would have been 92
I
when you saw the commercials.
Right,
I
and
would
actually,
assume.
well, I do know this because I have some memorabilia from Husker Harvest days, from the Dodge tent. Well, all of them, to be honest, because I was young back then, and I have brochures from that. And like I said, I think you're right. It might have been more '93 when they were really more for sale, but I think they were really pushing them and promoting them hard. Um, and the reason why I remember that so vividly is because I think the KRVN tent was near the Dodge tent, and had Monogram money. And I spun. Holy shoot! Are we shifted gears really fast here? We got some 6 speed going. Now that I think about it, I spun the wheel. My initials come up. I won and I still have it. Shoot, could I show it on camera? I might even have it in the room here. I'm streaming on. Anyway, maybe I'll post a picture of it. Oh no, maybe anyway. I won this bottle of popcorn, and it said my initials popped up on the KRBN's monogram money, and I was, and the reason why is because it got put with like I have like a new Dodge like bandana and like some yardsticks, and of course all the brochures. I like even got the trades van stuff. I mean, I have it from like the tractor dealership, the tractor stuff too, but I don't know why I kept all that stuff. I was going through stuff over at my folks's and found these, and they're like pristine condition. I mean, I know you can like buy them on eBay and stuff, but it was interesting to see the new Magnum engines and stuff, and how they marketed them and all that stuff, and of course the Cummins available and all that kind of stuff, and then the chassis cabs and the configurations you could get. It's kind of neat to look at now, but yeah, uh, then that's like, to me, that was an explosion. Then you started seeing Dodges around. People were driving those, the quote, new Dodge. But prior to that, they were a very square, boxy. Front ends were not as memorable, I would say, as the Chevys, with the either the round headlights or the square, and then the stacked headlights. Same with Ford kind of went through that too. They didn't have the stack, but they went round the square, and until you got to the 1980 or something. But yeah, it's just interesting what you kind of remember as a kid on that kind of thing. We drove Fords pretty much. I mean, we had a square body Chevy, 2-wheel drive, heavy half, or Big Ten. You remember that one? That red pickup.
Yeah.
Had a 350 in it, with put like an Edelbrock intake and an Edelbrock Performer carb on there, just getting rid of the factory one. And but it was a 4-speed transmission technically, but really it was only a 3-speed, because it had the low 2-wheel drive, but it had the low gear. So so you had low up here, first, second, third. So you always started in first, because low was just not even usable in that. It's kind of funny why it was ordered that way. And it was just the whatever the base model, like the Cheyenne, I think, was the trim level, maybe not the Scottsdale, but it was the heavy half, so it had an extra leaf string. They could have the heavier front springs, which were coil, and an extra rear leaf spring, I think, is what made that the heavy half, or the Big Ten, for those. Ford had their version of that too, and I don't remember what it's called. Somebody will know in the comments. But yeah. Like what, I guess I didn't really know. Like your folks, what they drive, your dad and such. What did you guys drive? I don't remember.
It was just
for pickups,
the square body.
Okay, it was a square body Chevy. So that's probably why you're sort of a Chevy man. I'm a little agnostic, I guess, in a way. I guess I'm kind of a Mopar fan in cars, but that's kind of like the 70s and before, but God, I've had GMs all this time, and
I mean, like, if you think about it, I mean, also, like, the only Ford we had was the Bronco 2, and the motors in those were not very good.
Yeah, that was a weird time.
I didn't help matters, but the motors in those things weren't very.
I remember you
good.
didn't like that vehicle, and then you had an S10 Blazer for a bit.
I didn't. Oh well, I bought for a hunting vehicle, and
that's it.
I had problems with that one too.
I think, didn't that have the smaller V6, like the 2.8 or something in it? Not the 4.3 like.
I can't remember what it had. It was a V6, but I can't remember what it had in it.
It must. Yeah, I remember he had some troubles with it. That's right. It was just going to be a hunting rig or whatever.
Yeah, except for it, like, it couldn't even. You'd leave it sit for a week, and you come back the next weekend, and it wouldn't start. And I ended up getting rid of it, and whoever bought it, they drove a daily, and it worked fine for them.
Interesting.
But I was never gonna drive a daily, so.
Yeah, no, because it was just gonna be your hunting rig, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that's, I don't know why that one sticks out. I can vaguely remember even what it looked like. Because it seems like you only had it for like a hot second.
Yeah, I pretty much did. I can't remember how long I had it.
Now I guess, would that have been a $500 car?
No,
I mean, you know what I mean. Maybe you didn't pay $500, but would you have called that a $500 car?
No, because my $500 cars to me would mean that they go 500 miles, and that wasn't going 500
Oh,
miles for
okay.
me.
so
It's got that,
so it's one of those that had basically a tail light warranty.
yeah. It a $500 car to me, usually I expect 500 miles out of it. So basically, the car costs me $1 a
Dollar a
mile,
mile.
and then
I've never
everything
thought of
after
it
that,
that way.
and then everything after that is just gravy.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And that's why it's like thinking about these newer cars and being more expensive. Like, well, if you pay 1,500 for it and then it goes 1,500 miles, um, then it's got your it got you where it needed to go. So
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you know, that kind of makes me think of another friend of ours, who I've actually had on live stream, good old Redline, Derek. Should get him on. Should get him on, mostly because he goes through car. Well, maybe not so much now, but it seemed like for a while there he kind of would go through cars like some people change underwear. You know, I mean, his, like we could probably ride our how many, all of our cars on our arm, and he'd have to use both arms and his back and anything to of all the cars he's gone through. God, there's so many. It's like he's like, buy it, drive it for 2 months. Like he'd be selling it off to buy another thing, and that's going to be the next project car that he's going to drive, and then and it gets him where he wants to go, and then it's like, this is the next one. Yeah, I've always wanted this, and it's like, but yeah, probably not so much anymore. But that's one. It's like I just especially like private sailing, which is what we have to do for our kind of cars when we're done with them, because most of them ain't worth trading in on anything, or they ain't gonna give you nothing for it.
Well, I don't think anybody gives you anything worth trading in value anymore.
But what I'm saying is, my thing is I hate having to sell cars. I kind of don't like even really buying them, but by God, he don't mind trading dollars around. I mean, that's the thing. It's like he's basically just trading dollars, because he never really move up, but he'd move laterally. In a way, he'd never gain anything, but he'd never really lose anything, and I always gotta kind of admire that, because it's like, well, get to try a lot of different cars, get to drive a lot of different cars, and but yeah, that's just not me. I'm more more conservative, like a little bit of consistency in my life. But yeah, we need to get him on. If you've made it this far into the podcast, leave a comment down below, and let's have a keyword. What's a good keyword that if somebody made it this far, they'll hear this word and can write it in the comments below? What's a good word to sort of sum up what we've talked about here? I always try to think of one. Let's say, well, I tell you what, it's a very small point. Put monogram money down below. If you made it this far, you'll put monogram money, and if you're from a certain region of the United States, you'll know what that is. And I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast. Please hit that like button, subscribe, share it with your friends, tell everybody. Ring that notification bell, because we're going to do these live someday, and you'll want to be in on it, because we're going to take listener questions live on some of these. So you want to get subscribed so you don't ever miss anything. And well, we got SkullKrusher, and I'm the Junk Man, and if you can't find them, grind them.